Well, I have chosen cases where I would say I myself am still wondering what are the best solutions to the problems the court was confronted with. So one question, for example, is the denial of the qualification of the murder of Armenian people at the beginning of the century as genocide. This is prohibited in Switzerland, or was prohibited in Switzerland, and the question for the court was if such a prohibition is an unacceptable restriction of freedom of expression. In the end, with a very small majority, the court decided yes, that it is not acceptable as a human rights restriction, as a restriction of freedom of expression. And when I had my lesson here, I asked my students in the end, and they were divided more or less 12 to 13. So it showed that this is a question where you can argue both sides with very good reflections, and that is very good for discussing. For me, it was interesting to see how such a case can be discussed with students, because I had been in the case in Strasbourg and I discussed with my judges, with my colleagues, and it was interesting to see in how far students might have different approaches, especially also students coming not only from Europe but from other countries. Being a judge is a very difficult task, especially on the European level. The court is confronted with very different tasks in general. It has to decide on routine cases, so there are human rights violations that are not difficult to discern, and it's just necessary to have a court deciding. But the court is also called upon to decide on very difficult ethical problems, political problems that are linked to cultural diversity in Europe, where it's necessary to give an orientation. I think being a judge there is a huge privilege. It's for 9 years the most interesting task you can imagine, to discuss on those cases together with judges coming from 46 different countries. At the same time, you feel a huge responsibility, because if the court goes wrong and is not accepted anymore by those living in the member states, that would be a real disadvantage for all. So to keep its high reputation and to find compromise solutions acceptable to all is very important. Oligarchization is a phenomenon we are confronted with worldwide. So we have oligarchs. That means we have people who are so rich that they can determine politics, that they own the media, they can determine the actions of political party, they can buy whatever enterprise they want and influence the industry of the country. So this phenomenon of oligarchs we have worldwide, but we have it especially in Central and Eastern Europe after the fall of the communism and the new building up of a new economy. We see that there are a lot of unequal distributions of wealth. The problem is not only a problem of equality, but it's also a problem of democracy, because those who are the most wealthy ones should not be those who influence the state more than others. At the same time, democracy needs money. You have to finance campaigns, you have to finance elections, etc. So where do democracies get money from without being dependent on oligarchs? That is really a very difficult question. Well, if you want to be influential in the field of human rights, you have several different possibilities. Of course, you can work in NGOs, you can work sort of on the ground and fight for people's rights. And I must say I admire very much lawyers who defend those people in state that we could call dictatorships or authoritarian regimes and who stand up for the rights of others. We do have political prisoners in some countries of the Council of Europe, but worldwide we have a lot. So this is one possibility which needs a lot of courage and engagement. At the same time, it's also possible to work in academia and to teach others to be lawyer then. So this is also a very responsible task, to help also think about a good jurisprudence, about good solutions to human rights problems. And last but not least, you can work in the official field, so you can be a member of government, of the authorities, you can work in the European Commission, you can work in institutions, because they have the lever in their hands to have a good human rights policy, and this can be an aim as well. So there are a lot of opportunities.